Greetings and welcome to the Badger Pay. Shit. Starting over. Greetings and welcome. Shut up. To the Badger Cave's West Wing, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Your sinuous hosts for this evening are myself, Brian the Doge in Charge, Hannah, our punster, Max, the Simpsons kin from another mother lover, and along with our news team, myself again, and Scott.
How many ciders have you had already?
I just took my first sip.
Really?
This is
Wow,
my first
you're a
sip.
cheap
Yeah, I
date.
know. I don't know. I'm just like... All right. But seriously, this will be fun. This evening we'll be covering the following topics. Hillary Clinton suddenly reasonable when it comes to listen and believe. I wonder why. A Steven Universe artist takes a social media break because she wasn't shipping right. A study that shows women are now cheating as much as men, and water is wet. An op-ed which explores the idea that women should simply carry themselves in the same way that mediocre white men do so that they can find happiness. I'm not kidding, that's a real thing. And finally, this week's bonus story is a HuffPo article that takes seriously a video that College Humor made about the ways in which air conditioning affects women differently from men. If you want to enjoy further personalized discussion with the Badgers on select topics, such as College Humor's video about internet air conditioning sexism, maybe? Please become a patron. Now, here are the Polecats, Scott and myself, and Max, with a summary of the news. So, Max, why don't you tell us a little bit about Hillary Clinton?
Yes, well, just to take your mind off of the image of Hillary Clinton that plagues our mind, which is one of fear and despair whenever we think of her, I'm gonna direct your attention to a woman that has a lot more charisma, intelligence, and somebody who's just all the way around magically babelicious. Her name is Ash Scow, and I'm going to be reading an article that she posted on the Washington Examiner in regards to something that Hillary Clinton said. So while I'm reading this, just think of Ash. Here at Honey Badger Radio, our panelists and listeners believe that a sensible way to approach the topic of rape would be the trust but verify model. We believe in respecting the claims made by purported victims, but we do not believe in removing due process in order to ensure justice is served. And up until recently, it would be fair to say that presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton, dissented towards that model. However, contributor for the Washington Examiner, Ash Scow, noted that her position might have recently changed. Back in September of 2015, Hillary Clinton tweeted the following from her official Twitter account. To every survivor of sexual assault, you have the right to be heard, you have the right to be believed. We're with you. Ms. Scow's position seems to fall in line with that of other sensible people, that accusers' stories shouldn't be immediately discounted, but their claims do have to be investigated, and investigators need to look for facts instead of railroading for political purposes. However, it seems that back in February of this year, Hillary Clinton's campaign website no longer says that those making these types of accusations have the right to be heard and believed. The date of February 2016 seems fishy because it is the same month that Juanita Broaddrick, a woman that has maintained for decades that Bill Clinton raped her and Hillary threatened her, emerged publicly again and tweeted about her encounter. When Hillary was asked at a campaign event back in December whether believing all survivors meant believing people like Broaddrick, Hillary said the following: I would say that everybody should be believed at first until they are disbelieved based on evidence. Is this a classic case of somebody believing one thing about a controversial subject until it affects them directly? We'll discuss in a few minutes.
Okay. Well, I guess, do you have any short thoughts about that, Max? And I know that Hannah wants to talk about this one. I think this is a good topic, so we'll definitely have to come back to this one for the discussion portion. But if anybody has any brief thoughts
I got a quick take on it.
Okay.
This reminds me a lot of when Santorum was asked about when his wife was sick. I believe she was sick. Or wait, was it sick? No, it was a litigation thing. I'm sorry, excuse me. She was in a litigation for something, and it was a position that he was against. But when they asked him about it, he was like, "Oh no, this is my wife. I don't care about these other people. We're talking about, my family here." And he was okay with litigating because it was his family. but it seems kind of that same kind of thing, that double standard. It's like, oh, it's okay when it happens to everybody else, but when it happens to me, I have my own set of rules that I only apply to myself, and everybody else has to follow what I say. The whole do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. So this seems fairly reminiscent of that sort of situation. So.
And all I will say is Ashcow, more like Ash. Anyway,
Ash
next
is a
story.
very lovely young
lady.
She's a lovely lung lady.
What, lung lady?
A lung lady. Hey, that's ableist.
I know that Scott only has the best of intentions. Ash, if you're listening, listen, you're beautiful.
Okay, can you guys pass the cider, please? I'd like to have whatever you guys are having.
I wish I had some cider. I probably would be able to talk a lot better.
And I would like to quote Conspiracy from our chat. That Ash.
That Ash.
That
right.
Ash.
Okay. Next story. Space Rock. What? Hannah.
Are we going to talk about this at all, or do we have to wait till all the stories are read?
Well, yeah, let's just go through the stories, and then we'll come back to the Hillary one, if that's okay. Unless you want to do
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's... Well, I will point out... there's a lot to unpack because the history of this is very, very hypocritical when it comes to Hillary, and it's not just one or two things. It's not just Broderick. But on to the next stories then.
We will definitely come back to the Hillary one. Space Rock Lesbians. Once any form of media gains enough popularity in a fandom, it's eventually bound to form around it. Star Trek has Trekkies, Doctor Who has Whovians, Sherlock has the Sherlocked. While the Steven Universe fandom doesn't have an official name for its fans, they certainly do exist and in great vocal numbers. On the surface, the community seems warm and welcoming, but the deeper you go, the darker things get. Plunging into the depths of Steven Universe-related Tumblrs often yields heated arguments centered around which characters make better couples and harsh critiques of each other's fan art. Most of the drama stays locked away in the recesses of the internet, but every now and again it bubbles out and affects the real world. Lauren Zuka, I hope that's pronouncing that correctly, storyboard artist for Steven Universe, has previously shown support for a possible romantic pairing between two characters in the form of storyboard art. Less word to the wide, Lauren, never, ever do that. The pairing of the two characters was called into question by a recent episode of the show, which angered an extremist subsection of fans. Enraged fans took to Twitter in order to call out Zuka, accusing her of teasing a potential romance that was never meant to actually happen. Oh, the humanity!
The feels.
Yes. Zuka pleaded with her attackers, claiming that she doesn't have direct control over the show and trying to remind everyone that there is more to life than the show. Ooh, don't do that. A more positive group of fans took to Zuka's side and rallied to her aid, but it was too late for that as Zuka deleted her Twitter account shortly afterwards, citing harassment as the reason. This isn't anything new for the fandom, or any fandom for that matter. Last year, a fan artist was bullied so harshly over her art that she attempted to take her own life. How sad that a fandom based around such a bright and colorful show and so much inclusivity plays host to some of the nastiest and most vicious people on the internet. I want to go into this story a little bit more because I just don't understand where this, not only this need to ship everything all the time, but this need to have it validated through the fucking company that makes the product that you're geeking out about in the first place. Where does that come from? And I think that there's, seems to me that for the people who are invested enough that they would participate in this behavior, it's got to come from a place of insecurity and incredible narcissism, because it's essentially saying my ideas or my perception, what I take away from this thing that I enjoy, is so important that it is reality, and I need to see it realized.
It's called Tumblr, Brian.
Yeah. But there are people in Tumblr. I think that's what I think anyway. I mean, I don't go there. It seems like a silly place.
It's a well of souls.
Yeah.
Lost souls.
It's the Upside Down from Stranger Things, except it's got more than one monster in it.
Well, it's got more than one predator in it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this is something I was thinking about today, actually. It's very akin to what's happening with the Steven Universe thing. And I came up with this cute little term, fangelism. It's basically it's when you get these fans that are so invested so heavily, where they so heavily create their identities around their fandoms that they become fangelists, and they turn it becomes a matter of near religious fervor for them. They have this doctrine that they create and they have to protect it. And the thing is, though, you don't have a holy book per se in these cases. You have everybody making up their own rules and making up their own gods and making up their own, precepts of what this is supposed to be. So that's when you see this kind of stuff happening, and it's like, and it's kind of crazy. Like this is kind of like the Steven Universe thing is taking this to the very, very extreme, and a dangerous extreme is the problem. That's kind of what I was getting at. It's just like this is really messed up. The kind of stuff that goes on.
I want to come back to this too because. One of our most favorite gold-digging feminists, Lori Penny, and when I say gold-digging, I mean nose-picking, has some opinions about Steven Universe also. And,
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She loves it. And I'll come back to that in a second. Because I think that people who are ideologically driven by everything, like their worldview is essentially centered around their ideology and everything has to conform to it, and if it doesn't, then there's something problematic or wrong with it. Lori Penny is an example of that, and I wouldn't be surprised, even if the person who made Steven Universe had no intention of doing that, there are people who are glomming onto it and projecting their beliefs onto it. So we'll definitely come back to it. I'll talk a little bit about Lori Penny later. Okay, so Mr. Scott...
Oh, this is a hot one. Women are now cheating as much as men, but with fewer consequences. Alyssa Glacobi? We'll go with that. Yeah, Alyssa Glacobi from Beta Male writes about how the gender gap in adultery is closing, according to a report from 2007 out of the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University and a 2013 General Social Survey published by the National Opinion Research Center. Many theories are explored as to why this is the case, most of them picturing women as victims of bad marriages whom have chosen the empowering thing to do, knowing that society will readily forgive them for it. As one woman who cheated on her husband said, women are more forgiven because it's the struggle of being a certain type of powerful woman. You were a different person when you began the relationship, and he's just not, she said as her hamster wheel spun furiously.
Yeah, or women can be just as big of an asshole as any man can.
or this idea that it's happening more now is a bunch of fucking horseshit.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. When did they ever have proof that there was a gender gap in cheating? Maybe there was only a gender gap in getting busted, or maybe there was only a gender gap in getting divorced because of it. Because a woman can walk away from a cheating husband without getting punished for leaving the marriage. But if a man has a cheating wife, and I can say this from some point of knowledge here, if a man has a cheating wife, and even if she leaves him, he's going to get hit with at least child support if they have kids. He may get hit with alimony. The division of property is not going to be in his favor, and he may even be treated as the reason why she cheated, even if he has done nothing wrong and bent over backwards to try to keep their marriage intact.
Yeah, even with just the implication too. It's almost like rape in some cases, where just the implication is enough. Like he may have not even done anything, and he can get, like you said, all those, all the bad things that can potentially happen to him.
Yeah. So it's very possible that there was never. It's quite likely, in fact, that there was never a gender gap in cheating. There was just a gender gap in how it gets judged and the impact that it has on the cheater's life and the victim's life.
Is this really even the kind of gap that we want to see even out? I mean,
seriously,
like this is the point we're at, where it's like women cheat just as much as men do. Awesome, this is equality. No, this is not good.
No. Uh-oh. Equality would be if cheating on her husband could be used against her in court as a statement that she is a bad mother and an abusive partner, and a reason why he should get the bulk of the estate, the bulk of her income, and custody of the children. Because although those conditions don't generally apply to women in divorce cases, in contested divorce cases, they do get applied to men in contested divorce cases, even though the law says they're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
That would be equality. Equality would be if claiming abuse didn't get her out of the marriage, and claiming, or if claiming abuse did get him out of the marriage. This is not equality. And speaking of gaps, I think women's gap seems to be the problem.
Oh, I see what you did there, Hannah.
They're thinking with that instead of their brains.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
All right, let's get on to the next story. Last story, actually. Why would you carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white male? You're a fucking white male. Julia Baird, an author at ABC News Australia and host of The Drum on ABC TV, writes about how otherwise successful women can bolster their self-confidence when they are experiencing moments of self-criticism for not being better or being perfect. The cure for such self-loathing? Reminding yourself that you are better than their white male peers are, and that the only reason their white male peers land more jobs than they do is because they apply for them much more often despite their mediocrity. Baird concludes, if we dash a bit of white man confidence cologne on our wrist before heading out to work each morning, we can at least be buoyed by the fact that it is very often uncertainty and not mediocrity that holds women back.
Well, she's right about the uncertainty part. Everything else, not so much.
Yeah, this is kind of a hot topic I want to dive into too, but I'll save it for when we talk about it, though.
Okay.
I've got some pretty extensive thoughts on this one.
All right. So yeah, those are the stories in brief. I actually have a few thoughts on that one too. So let's.
I have a request on that one actually.
Okay.
This is a request for reader submissions. Men who have been in work situations, who have been criticized, where you feel like you've been criticized, unfairly, or you've dealt with a situation that women complain about, but men are not entitled to complain about the same situation. Write to us at submissions@badger. Let's see, what is that? Now I can't remember the damn email address. Submissions at badgerpod.com.
Submissions at badgerpod.com? Okay.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
We'll find it and put it in the logo.
Yeah, we'll say it again at the end of the episode. But, why is Hannah's sound quality so bad, asked Polaris? That's because I'm on a Chromebook because my computer got struck by lightning. So, and it's still broken. So anyway, but no, write to us and let us hear about your experience. Write anonymously, or if you want to give your name, give your name. Either way, I would love to hear about your experiences in the workplace that you feel like you've been through something that women feel entitled to complain about and men don't.
And by the way, Honey Badger Radio, we're all for accepting sponsorship programs, so if anybody wants to send us any of that white man confidence cologne, we'd be more than happy to participate in sweepstakes, giveaways. Honestly, I'd be willing to buy some of that in bulk. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's right.
I'm kind of leaning more towards a cider sponsorship myself, but, that's just me.
Okay,
well,
we could do
and
both.
It is submissions at badgerpod.com.
I recommend Delicious Cider Boys cider. Apple raspberry hard cider specifically.
See, I'm more of a woodchuck man myself, but that's just me.
Man, it's really hard to decide her.
Nobody's going to actually say they prefer a little dick insider.
Hey,
well, no, I'm not going to say that.
They prefer.
I don't need to, because you just did. Hey-oh!
Okay, so let's go back to the stories. Hannah, you want to say something about Hillary Clinton?
Oh, yeah, I have a lot to say about Hillary Clinton. If there is anybody else that has anything to say, they might want to go before me.
No, I'm good.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say about Hillary is it seems obvious that the reason why she is hesitant to bring up go along with the whole listen and believe thing is because it's being used against Bill, which in turn is being used against her. So this is not a matter of whether or not Hillary actually believes in that or much of anything. It's more about what is the wisest choice. What is the tactically wise choice, and this is where she's going. So That's all I'm going to say about that. Hannah, you can go ahead and run with it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
pass you the ball.
Yeah, I would say it's actually kind of hard for Hillary to make a tactically wise choice at this point because she has spent, I think, about 40 years fucking this up. She started clear back, I believe it was in the 70s, when she defended a client accused of raping an underage girl. And she used questioning the girl's sanity as his defense. She basically portrayed the girl as a crazy person who made up these accusations and everything. And she did get the guy some sort of deal based on her defense of him. So, and then she bragged about it and laughed about it and everything. And while I'm not going to get into whether I think what she did at that time was right or wrong, it does set the tone for, Hillary not being able to turn around and say, listen and believe. But then she went through in the 90s when her husband was being accused of all kinds of things. And again, I'm not going to say he's guilty. I'm not going to say he's innocent. There's evidence both ways and a lot of that stuff. The only thing that was conclusively proved was that he did cheat. And it's kind of hard to deny that, considering there was physical evidence. Twice there was physical evidence. There were tapes with Jennifer Flowers, and then of course there was the messy dress with Monica Lewinsky. And then there were also tapes with Monica Lewinsky because of her taped conversations. But that all aside, I want to point out the way Hillary Clinton responded to this. She didn't just stand by her man, which is a choice. She can do that. She's a wife. She can choose to stand by her man. She can choose to walk away. She found it probably strategic to stand by her man, politically expedient, so to say. And maybe she loves him. I kind of doubt it, just from the stories. But in any case, she went on the attack. She used to refer to instances of women coming forward to talk about their relationships with Bill Clinton as bimbo eruptions. She said terrible things about the accusers who claimed sexual harassment and worse, to the point of saying that they were trash and nobody would believe them. She actually participated in a media attack. She called it a vast right-wing conspiracy, so she basically accused these women of lying for political reasons and being shills for the Republican Party. And she did every possible thing she could do to blame the accusers and the women who he was accused of having an affair with for attacking her husband, rather than dealing with the situation as it was. And if she were really the open-minded and caring person that she claims to be, and she wanted to stay with her husband and move forward from the situation and everything, she should have been honest. She should have simply said, this is the way things are. And she could have said there was an open relationship. She could have said that she didn't care if he cheated. She just wanted to be with him. Whatever. But instead, she disparaged every woman besides herself who was associated with the president at the time. And now she wants to come forward and say women should be listened to and believed. Of course she's going to remove that from her site. Of course she's going to maybe delete the tweet. All of this is bullshit. She doesn't have a real opinion on this. She has whatever the way the wind blows. She'll stick her finger up in the air, and in whatever direction it's coming from, whatever direction it's going to, that's the direction she's going to go. And it came back to bite her in the ass this time because of her history. She thought people would forget. She thought it had been enough years. She thought people wouldn't speak up. She thought the accusers would be too embarrassed to come forward, particularly Juanita Broaddrick, because if I remember correctly, she changed her story at one point and later said that she was coerced into saying what she said the first time around. So, and she's not the only one who made an accusation. There was a second accusation. I can't remember the woman's name. And if I had my regular computer and my two screens up, I would be citing news stories and all kinds of stuff. but this information is available all over the internet. In fact, Miss Broderick's Mrs. Broderick's grandson, had stated to her, as according to one story, that he found the information online and learned about her situation without being told, and that he supported her because you're going to tell your grandmother you support her. So if he could find it, and I'm sure anybody else can as well. But yeah, Hillary Clinton, what she has demonstrated by doing this is, yet again, she is nothing but a hypocrite. There is no substance whatsoever to her. She's just a facade, and we don't know what's really behind that facade. And whatever is politically expedient for her is what's going to come out.
As an aside, there was a video that I saw circulating on social media, and it was people who, it had like I don't know, men and women that were interested, like supposedly Hillary supporters, and they were supposedly like everyday people, and it was the most cringiest thing I ever saw. Like, they were like, why don't they stop talking about the email scandals and like these accusations? We're Hillary supporters. We're just like you. We just want to get on with our lives and like vote for this person. Would you stop like looking so closely at everything? It's so funny, and I was like, this is the cringiest shit I've ever seen. Like, what do you even? Who gave this the green light? It's laughable. If you can find it. I think. Oh, and there was actually one woman on there that was like, oh, they're calling her a bitch and a cunt and a bunch of other like gendered slurs, and and I'm like, well, if the shoe fits, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, this emotional manipulation is crazy. It's funny because this is somebody that I don't know, should be like on trial, should be in prison, and she's like running for office. It's
hey. All I'm saying is that a lot of people who have gone against the Clintons have died mysteriously. I don't know if that points to anything, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Even
there
recently,
there are questions out there that are not being answered for some reason.
I mentioned that to some people I know, and they brought up like the Bushes, right? And to try to like say, well, they're just as bad, and I'm like, yeah, but you're asking me. I'm not asking you to choose between the Bloods and the Crips. I'm telling you that there's a problem.
It's kind of like, well, here's the thing though. Here's the funny thing though, is that it has become a joke because it has happened so often that it has become a joke, and I don't know what part of that is worse: the fact that it happens more, or that it's a joke now. It's like, oh, you don't want to mess with the Clintons, you might end up 6 feet under in a swamp somewhere. It's like, but you might. It's like. See, oh god, yeah. When people turn off their faculties and stop looking at things with a discerning eye, is like you're talking about, like with that video. It's just like, oh no, just don't even pay attention to that.
And they basically they got like a woman with problem glasses, and she's like overweight, and they got like a really effeminate dude to come out. And he's like, I just like her. I just think she's a nice person. I want to vote for her. And I'm like. You guys are all paid actors. None of you are actually voters or regular folks,
That's pretty much the mirror of what they ran against the Bushes with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just don't like him. I don't have a reason. I just don't like him. Or, well, I just think he's stupid. And what did he graduate from, Yale or something like that? Those stupid Yale graduates, they don't know anything, right? But the other thing with this is, I don't understand why, when you say there is a trail of dead bodies behind this couple, there is a trail of dead bodies associated with this couple, that somebody thinks, well, there's a trail of dead bodies associated with the Bushes, eliminates that.
Right, yeah.
I know.
Win. Is that, if you say...
Yeah, I guess you win. I guess there isn't actually a trail of dead bodies, since you brought up
that cogent
point.
Yeah, like if you respond to... Well, women are uniquely oppressed because women get objectified, with men get objectified too. If it's oppression, it oppresses both sexes. If you answer that with that, you get, whoa, what about the men's isn't a response? What about the men's? Blah, blah, blah. But if you respond to, Hillary has a trail of dead bodies behind her with, whoa, Bushes has a trail of dead bodies behind him too, suddenly that eliminates Hillary's trail?
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Really?
Yep.
No.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any thoughts on the Hillary Clinton's change of heart, change of hard drive?
Only that this.
She's focus grouped. I mean, that's basically all this is.
Yeah.
This is her focus grouping for opinions, for her to figure out what her opinions are, so that she's the most palatable to the most people when they come to voting. So this is nothing new. This is the same old bullshit we see every fucking 4 years. So, you know.
Yeah, it's not a very good job of focus grouping there.
Well, yeah, it's pretty sloppy. Yeah.
I just gotta say, this reminds me of actually the hypocrisy of the National Organization for Women during the Clinton presidency, in which, like, when there were women coming out and accusing Clarence, when it was Clarence Thomas being accused of sexual harassment, they had statement after statement after statement about how, listen and believe, and how important it was that women should not be kept down in professional areas because of a man's behavior and so on. Clinton gets accused by not just one woman, but numerous women, and they shut up. Radio silence, not a word, until finally they were nagged into to coming out and saying something, and they said they supported him. They didn't believe the women. So it's pretty clear that these feminist groups, their believe the woman mantra only applies to women who they approve, and women who are not challenging politicians they approve. And Hillary's just a part of that.
Hillary doesn't have a heart. She has a nuclear power core. She has a phylactery. It's kept in it's like running on this large, giant, dark black crystal. That's
what all those seizures are. She's going into anaphylactic shock.
Yeah, or she's like running out. She needs like another virgin, so that she can like drain their life essence. That's what Bill is for. Anyway, it's Max.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton raped me. But anyways, I did have one other thing to say. I just want to remind people that this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, where women that are naturally self-proclaimed feminists have actually lied in order to just try to appeal to as many people as they can, like flip-flopping on issues. For example, speaking of the aforementioned fat women with problem glasses, Kirsten Gillibrand, former senator of New York, I think she's a former senator, she actually removed the 1 in 5 rape statistic, claiming that 1 in 5 women on sexual... Sorry, I can't speak today. 1 in 5 women on college will be sexually assaulted. She removed that statistic from her website, yet she still refers to the statistic when it's convenient during public appearances. So just if you ever need any more evidence that this is exactly what Hillary Clinton was trying to do, it's out there, and other examples as well.
There you go. Thanks, Max. Okay.
Beryllium Sphere. It's Galaxy Quest.
Yes! She runs on a beryllium sphere.
Yep.
Galaxy Quest. All right. Great fucking...
Hillary is our last hope. Sorry, I love Galaxy Quest more than just about anything.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, anyway, so...
Security limousine. Sorry.
Okay, so Steven Universe, speaking of fandoms, okay, so this woman got driven off of Twitter because essentially what she did was she took a couple of characters from the Steven Universe show. I don't know who they are. Don't ask. I'm not going to remember. I could look it up. It doesn't matter. She essentially drew them together in some sketches where they were kind of like, they're really harmless pictures too. They're not like doing anything sexy or whatever. And a portion of Tumblr, the Steven Universe fandom, got really upset because she was shipping the wrong characters together. Like, not the ones that they wanted. And she wasn't really shipping anything. She was just sort of essentially, if you think of the fandoms or the people who like to draw fan art and stuff like that as sort of a community that exists on the fringe of something that doesn't actually alter the canon per se, but, it's fun that they're doing stuff. She was participating in that. She was just like, oh, here, I'll do a sketch too. Hey, we're all drawing stuff. Here we go. And they basically people were like, no, not those two, no, you know. And they got really mad, and she got a lot of, you know, blowback, and then she took a break from Twitter. And it got me thinking. You know, not long ago we were talking about on another. What actually no, I was at a mixed up meetup in Ohio where Hannah's at, and we were talking about shipping a little bit. And one of the things I was trying to understand is, as somebody who's been interested in nerdy stuff like for as long as I was able to remember it, I never had this need for anything that I made up in my head or decided, you know, like I would like to do even as a child, needed to be reflected in reality to the point where I wanted to go after people who weren't doing it the way that I think they should have done it. And that brings me to shipping. Like, why is that such a big deal to people? Why do people want to do that? And it actually does sometimes, like these days, it actually does have influence because I believe in Legend of Korra, when that show ended, the people who were making it decided, based on what they were seeing on Tumblr and stuff, that they would ship Korra and Asami together at the end, or at least sort of ambiguously let us think that something was going on between them. But it does, for many people, it just comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't make sense, you know. But again, they were appeasing people who don't actually represent the majority, but are rather a loud minority. On top of that, there's something else that comes to mind. Why is it a show that is aimed at children? And you see this a lot, like, not that shows can only be enjoyed by children, but you see a lot of properties, right, that are made often with young people or families in mind. And adults are the ones that are going through it with a fine-tooth comb to find out, like, if they're doing gender right, if they're breaking stereotypes, and if they're representing everything correctly in all the shades of the rainbow of fucking, I don't know, relationships, sexuality, and all that, in areas that it doesn't actually fit in, like, or at least the people don't have any responsibility to give these people what they're hoping for. And that brings me to Lori Penny. And the reason why I brought it up is because Lori Penny is pretty much a useless feminist. She's not useful for much of anything. So she is a culture critic. A culture critic is somebody that you know isn't really good for shit because they don't have any skills. They just know how to complain about stuff that doesn't fit in the way that they want it to. And in brief, after she spoke at something in I think it was in Australia, she said that she loved Steven Universe, and her first sentence as to the reason why she liked it, she didn't say anything about, you know, I don't watch the show, so, you know, forgive me, I'm not trying to criticize Steven Universe at all. I'm sure that it was a well-intentioned piece of work that's probably just been co-opted by social justice warriors because of the content. But she didn't comment on how well written it was. She didn't comment on whether or not it was well animated. She didn't comment much on anything except for the fact that, in her own words, she said, I love it because it's so gay. And that's it. She likes it because it's gay. Because it has a lot of homosexual relationships in it, in her mind. Oh. In her mind. Now, this is actually, you know, I've had people tell me that it can't be homosexual because the characters, for the most part, are asexual. Yeah. Like, they don't actually have a gender. Yeah. But because they resemble women, you see, because they look like women or girls, people like Lori jump on it. And this is also the reason why that other girl was driven to the point where she attempted suicide, because she dared to draw these asexual characters that just so happen to resemble women as thin, like some of the chunkier ones, I guess, you know? So she drew them as thin, and all the body-positive feminists came out, and they were like, what the fuck? And then, like, you know, they lost their shit. And the funny thing is if those asexual people resembled men more, probably nobody would say anything about it. And that's the weird thing about it, you know, like, asexual either way it goes. But because they resemble women, they have to be seen as women, not just by, you know, and I bring up Lori Penny for an important point because, you know, the article talks about it as though it's like, oh, it's just this little tiny dark corner and sad part of Tumblr with their one little ball pit, and, you know, they're they just are a little loud, and that's about it. But Lori Penny is not a small figure. She has a lot of... She gets to speak at a lot of places and gets paid very well to do it. And, in fact, insists on being paid very well. If you saw that one... there was this one time where this guy, like, who... There was this... they were talking about Britishness. It was a debate. And there was this older gentleman that was there making the counter-argument against Lori Penny. And she accused him of being a racist on the stage, and he lost his shit, and he basically, like, you know, said that, let me tell you a little bit about Lori Penny. There was another event that I was supposed to speak at, and I offered to do it for free because I thought it was important to have the conversation. And Lori insisted on getting paid such a high sum from a group that didn't have any money because they were like a charity-driven organization. They didn't have a lot of money. But Lori Penny insisted that she get paid so much that they decided to cancel the event because they couldn't afford to pay her. And
I believe the sum was $20,000 or pounds.
It was like 20,000 pounds or some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
And he basically said, this is the bitch that is supposedly caring about the little guy, that supposedly has the backs of the oppressed. And
she is the voice of the people, Brian.
Yeah, she is the voice of the people. And so imagine that. Lori Penny, from a group of people who couldn't afford to pay her, insisted on 20,000 pounds. So how much is she getting from the places she actually does get to go speak at? And she does get to speak at places often. And this is important to point out, you know?
Well, this is important for another thing, because like what I was saying about when I was talking about before with the whole fangelism thing, like you said, Lori Penny has a podium. She has a group of people that listen to her religiously. That take her word as holy writ. They're like, oh, fucking Lori Penny said this thing, so it must be true. It is now the fucking law. And Lori Penny is just one of many people in this position that are, you know, I hate to say it like this, but they're misusing their power, and maybe they're not like cognizant of it, but they influence people in a way that is very negative, you know, and it's the same kind of thing in the fandoms. You know, we're talking about the Steven Universe thing. Maybe Lori Penny's not like the main motivator behind this, but there are people within that community that are basically bullying other people in that community into kind of, you know, being part of their group, and you know, it's like you see,
like thinking the way they do or believing in the same things they do, and that's why, you know, like people. Like the artist, this person that got driven off of Twitter or whatever, and the other original artist that you know, supposedly represented the characters as too attractive or too thin or whatever. I don't know the details again because I don't watch the show, but I do know what the consequences were. You have to stop appeasing these people. You have to stop caring what they think, and you have to, because one of the things that they need is essentially the reality check that your opinion doesn't matter that much.
Right.
That's just the reality check. And this whole, like, there was an article I just read the other day about Moana from this new Disney film, and it was written on like a big website, like, you know, HuffPo or The Guardian or something, and it was talking about how it's great that there's no romantic interest this time, you know, because this is like these are the important questions. These are the burning questions for a fucking Disney movie that like mostly kids are going to get into and watch. Which, by the way, nobody brought up when they released like Lilo and Stitch, like back in the 90s or whenever it came out. There was nobody saying it's a good thing that this girl doesn't have a romantic interest because it's time to break away from these stereotypes. And it's like, these shows are not for you. If you're like in your 20s and you're bitching about the way that they're representing, you know, characters in Disney movies or in like other children's films that are coming out, it's time to take a step back and think to yourself, wait, I'm an adult. Why am I concerned with this thing that isn't actually for me? It doesn't, like, if it's not, and I'm not saying that you can't enjoy this stuff. Like, I enjoy this stuff too. I bought The Incredibles and Wreck-It Ralph the other day on Blu-ray, right? But I never once, even if they didn't do things exactly the way I wanted, I never once said, well, somebody has to pay. Something has to be said. Something has to be done. You know, like I just
Somebody
said.
Has to pay.
Yeah, somebody has to
you're
pay.
paying for this.
Yes. Let me get Hillary on the phone. I want to make some people disappear because they didn't do this the way I wanted. You know.
Well, that's the problem though. This is kind of symptomatic of the kind of world that we live in right now, where there's so much communication available, and that people have these. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, fucking this, that, and the other. We have millions of different ways to reach out to people and people to reach back. And that's creating part of this problem because, before we're talking about closed systems. We're talking about studios that were making animation. They were doing this. They didn't have, the people that were actually making the art weren't, like, nobody cared who they were. It was a Disney product. It was a Time Warner product. It was a Warner Brothers product. It was this product, whatever it was. But now it's like because of the way things have evolved, it's people are seeing, they're like, oh, wait, who made this thing? I want to know who made it. And then they kind of build these people up into celebrities. It's like they take the artist and they make them bigger than normal, and the whole the fangelism thing starts. It's like they start creating more importance to these things than maybe is initially there. It's like maybe they were injecting some issues or ideas into these cartoons, but the fans get the stuff and they just fucking turn their fucking hamster wheels on and just start swirling their brains around into these fucking crazy ass fandoms on these like forums all over the net where they're just going nuts, just injecting so much shit in there that's not there, that's not natively part of these things. And so, and that's part of the problem with. I mean, it's like the internet is great, but that's part of the problem with the internet.
Yeah. No, though, there's definitely people who think I have a voice now and I'm going to use it. And it's just as it's important, and it's like you live on a planet with like 8 billion people or whatever. Your voice is not that important. I don't think my voice is that important. I mean, it's not. Like, you can tell me to fuck off, and that's fine. You should, if that's what you feel. Max, go ahead and say your one quick thing.
Yeah, I don't watch sports a lot, but I do remember that there was this one quote by this guy that died recently. I think it was Buddy Ryan, who said that those who listen to the fans are destined to be sitting with them next week. And the reason why that is because the reason the fans do not understand how certain creative products will evolve organically. When you have an outside force like the fans trying to peer pressure the creator into doing something that will properly advance the socio-political agendas, that will create a better society for all of us, it's just not going to work. There's nothing that I hate more as somebody who is involved in the world of film than having other people say, oh, something should have been this way. Then you don't understand the medium of TV and film. Because the whole purpose of it is that somebody comes up with an idea, and then they turn the camera on the idea that they're trying to bring to life. They're not supposed to have so many cooks in a kitchen that it just becomes a gigantic mess where you're trying to please everybody, because then eventually you just don't please anybody. So when it comes to the Steven Universe thing, of course it's going to have this sort of toxic element to their community because of things like their decisions to make these characters asexual. And I'm not saying like that's them trying to appease them. It's just it's something that's going to eventually happen. It's like if you had an entire show where a whole bunch of people had different colored hair. That's what's going to happen. I sort of lost the core.
I know what to call the show with all the people with different colored hair.
Oh, what?
No, I don't know. It would probably have be like Tumblr the cartoon or something,
sure. Or the Bleeding Rainbow.
Yeah, the Bleeding Rainbow. Free bleeding rainbow.
It's the Bleeding Rainbow.
This actually is kind of predicted. Not exactly to the letter or anything, but I mean, it's Stephen King's Misery was essentially about a crazed fan demanding that the writer do with the character that the writer created what she wanted. You can't kill off my favorite character. I'm going to make you write another episode that shows that she really didn't die. My favorite character really didn't die. Something else is going to happen. And I mean, it was supposed to be an extreme thing. It was supposed to be, holy shit, what would happen if somebody went off the deep end with this? Well, now people go off the deep end with it every day. And it wouldn't be too far-fetched to see somebody, like it's not too far-fetched to see a group of people attacking somebody on the internet and people are in some fandoms are outright doxing each other over stuff like this, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to see violence erupt from it. And it's not even, in this case, it's not even appropriate. I mean, it's not like inappropriate as in, you know, this is immoral or anything like that, but you know, like my son explained to me, the characters are literally sentient rocks that have physical illusions for bodies. There isn't really any way for them to have a gender unless they morph their bodies to have reproductive organs. You know, kind of like Rose did to give birth to Steven. So basically, they're taking something that doesn't exist and turning it into something that they want it to be, and then turning around and demanding that the writer maintain their illusion that the writer has been doing this thing that they wanted the writer to be doing, and all because it supports their political ideology.
Yeah,
I mean, how misery can you get?
Yeah, or either that, or at least their insecurity, their tremendous insecurity surrounding their need for either their ideas or some group that they represent be represented in this media. And yeah, so I think it comes from an insecurity, like their ego has a big part in it. And they're also like talking to each other all the time. It's a giant hug box, so they're all reaffirming their beliefs, you know.
And a sense of ownership. If I like this, it must be mine.
Yes.
You know, they might as well have pissed on the characters. These are our characters now. We pissed on them. Territory. Hello.
Yes.
That's I like that character. Don't eat it. It's mine.
That's a really profound analogy. I never really thought about it that way, the whole Kathy Bates and misery thing. And it's actually kind of terrifying. Although, thankfully, I think that the majority of the people that use Tumblr that are sort of engaging in these hysterics over Steven Universe don't really have the bone mass to be able to pick up a sledgehammer and break James Caan's legs. But, yeah.
They wouldn't know how to operate it. They'd you know, like, be holding the wrong end.
They know.
This isn't working.
Well, what is this? And they bang themselves on the head and they fall over.
They'd probably start a hashtag. They probably start a hashtag and a petition to get the government to do it. Yeah,
get a Patreon to have somebody teach them how to do it.
Yeah, or no, so they can pay the state to actually come over with a sledgehammer and do it themselves. You know, I'm reminded of something else. In the 80s, there was this show, and I'm sure you guys know it. I don't know why I'm being so descriptive, but He-Man, the Masters of the Universe, right? And at the end of every episode of He-Man, there was like a little PSA. He would give like a little PSA, and I remember one. I think it was about if you're a child and you someone touches you inappropriately, or someone essentially, it was like around the time that we had concerns about things like
wasn't that
sexual
Sonic?
molestation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole Adam's Laws thing when that thing was all happening.
Yeah. But they were like these PSAs with Adam, right? Mm-hmm. And he actually says at one point, some of the people you should go to, go to your parents, go to a teacher, and if you can't find them available. And he also mentions go to your priest or your rabbi. Now, it was really funny to hear He-Man talk about rabbis and priests, because I'm like, oh, they have rabbis on Eternia? But But the thing is that today, I wouldn't be surprised if today, if Prince Adam said the same thing, as a go to your priest or your rabbi, people would flip their shit. What about atheists? What about people who like don't? What about our imam or our clerics or our Buddhist, whatever you call a Buddhist priest or whatever? What about our Shinto priests? Like they would be. People would just lose their shit because either they were including religion, which they have something against, like they have a bone to pick right off the bat, or they were not including, like he didn't spend enough time going through every single religion that exists, no matter how small it is.
Right.
You must have a 4-page list for us to be satisfied that you have included everyone.
Yeah. Go to your yogi. Go to your
Jedi Master.
Yes, your Jedi Master. What? Yes.
Go to Tom Cruise.
Go to your witch doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Tom Cruise.
Can you imagine if He-Man had like a Gilbert Gottfried voice and he's like, I have the power.
The power of Grayskull.
Yeah.
Hey kids, let me tell you about fire safety.
Sports Champions, get the fuck out of here.
Hiya, Peter. Okay, do you guys have any thoughts about, let's go to the next story. Oh shit, what was it? About cheating?
Yeah.
Cheating. Oh yeah. I
Okay.
can make this one short and sweet. This is like, I don't think we have to say a whole lot about this other than this has always been a problem. Trying to say that there's equality within this is fucking ridiculous. It's like where's the metric that they started from to say that there was a disparity between the two? It's like, come on, please. Fucking people that cheat are shitbags. They're dishonest. It's just the way it is. Fucking
I know.
The whole conversation in this article is just fucking ridiculous.
I mean, why do we even, like, again, like I said earlier, why is the idea that let's say that if your findings are even true, which they're, that's a bit impossible to actually fish through and find out the truth about. But what we know is that people, men and women, are capable of being dirtbags to each other. We know that this is a fact. That's just human nature. That it's, people can do that. So to work from the assumption that men just, they just tend to do it more, and we're just now finding out that women are catching up to the depravity. First of all, what kind of attitude would you have to have towards men to even believe that they were already worse to begin with? And then secondly, why do you think that women doing it more, which isn't true, but let's say that it is for your sake of argument, why do we think that that's a good thing? Why are we calling that closing the gap? That's not good. That means something is dysfunctional with our relationships. That means that something is wrong with us. I mean, if it's, I don't know that it's a huge problem. I don't know what they say it's an epidemic of adultery. I don't know. I mean, I know that there's, we have a really hard time relating to each other in an honest and loving way. Something is wrong. Well, you can look at the high rates of divorce and infidelity and hookup culture and what little we understand about what it seems to me anyway, what little we understand about relationships, and maybe we don't value it as much as we used to. I think that people do, but I think that there's the idea that a relationship between two people that could simply be enjoyable for those two people, despite the struggles and challenges that may come with it, that there's something inherently bad about that, or that we should shy away from that, or even some people would just make the argument that it's boring and stereotypical, and they do. I mean, that's how you get like people on the internet that say that they're all these different kinds of, I don't even know if it's sexualities or whatever, but that they prefer relationships where there's no sex but there's cuddling, and then there are people who want sex with a partner but they want to cuddle with a different partner, or the people who this is all stuff that people have said, where they want to essentially have all of these different ways of having relationships, but the one way that most people have had them since there have been people, or at least for a large part of our history, is the one that is the most frowned on. And then we're supposed to look at that and say, oh, well, it's good that more people are cheating. Or at least, it's fair. It's fairer because,
right.
This is what we're getting out of it. I mean,
it's kind of like the bush has a trail of bodies behind them, too thing. It's like,
yeah,
it doesn't just cancel out the bad things that are happening on the other side. It's just, what? It's like, oh, more women are cheating, so it makes it okay now. It's like, what? What kind of thinking is that?
They're so enamored with they're so enamored with the idea of equality that they want to be equal in terms of being assholes now.
Yeah. Hannah, you wanted to say something?
And this is honestly, to me, this is just another example of two things, actually. One, things that are bad when men do them, not being bad when women do them. And two, demonizing male sexuality. Because you think about it, we've got a double standard here that it's not being talked about in the article, but it's very, very much present in the discussion on loyalty and adultery. If a man cheats, he's a scumbag, right? If a man cheats, he's abusive. He's actually doing something to the woman. I've even seen it argued on Reddit by at least one feminist, actually 2 or 3 feminists were in that discussion, that it is a physical abuse that should be prosecutable or even considered rape by, retroactive rape by dishonesty. if a man cheats. That if a man cheats on his partner, she should be able to withdraw her consent for all of the times that they had sex because she thought he was loyal and she wasn't at risk for a sexually transmitted disease. So, and this didn't go both ways in the argument. And the reason that it didn't go both ways, according to this feminist argument, was that women don't do it as often as men. Where, here clearly they do. The research is showing what we already knew, that women do cheat as often as men. But the double standard is very stark. They're celebrating this like, women are catching up with something, like women are obtaining a freedom that men supposedly have. Well, they don't have it. And they've never had it. And they've always been treated as though they are some sort of a scumbag. Aside from politically arranged marriages where both partners have, as long as they were discreet, been able to have side action. In ordinary relationships with ordinary people, it has always been treated as some sort of an abuse when a man cheats. And it's just ridiculous that these women are treating this as something different. And the other aspect of this is it's not the only thing. Here we have a celebration of women smoking cigars. We see a celebration of women, ducking out of work. We see celebration of everything that men get criticized for doing when women do it. All of a sudden it becomes a good thing because a woman is doing it. Or all of a sudden the woman has developed a sense of freedom because she's doing it. If it's dysfunctional behavior, the fact that a woman is doing it does not make it not dysfunctional. It just means she's just as bad as everyone said men were for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
unless we suddenly forgive men for doing it too, because now women are doing it.
Yeah, get rid of line like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like when people say, "Oh, now that women are eligible for the draft, maybe the draft is a bad idea."
The draft has always been the draft has been a bad idea for a long time.
Oh, sure.
It's been. If it were not for the draft, if Woodrow Wilson could not have drafted men to fight in World War I, we would not have had World War II. World War II probably would not have happened. We might not be having all of the problems that we're having now, because a lot of the destabilization in the world that exists today can be traced back to World War II, which can be traced back to the difference in World War I that the Americans made, and the fact that we affected the balance of power in that war. And it doesn't matter who was going to win or lose, or whether anybody was going to win or lose prior to our entry. What we basically did was we put another weight on one side of the scale and tipped it a great deal. And that's a result of being able to draft and being able to send hundreds of thousands of men over there. If they hadn't been able to do that, it would have been a totally different story. And I would recommend, I can't remember the author's name, but there is a book called Wilson's War about how Woodrow Wilson's decision to enter World War I led to World War II. That I would recommend people read for more information on that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely check it out. I want to read the study itself because I know that people are going to ask about it, and I think it's good to go through really quick. So this is the study that they're citing in order to make, for these findings, okay? A study aimed to assess the relative importance of demographic, interpersonal, and personality factors in predicting sexual infidelity in heterosexual couples. A total of 506 men, aged 32.86 years on average, and 412 women, aged 27.66 years on average. I'm not sure what the SD stands for, but who indicated they were monogamous in a monogamous sexual relationship, completed a series of questionnaires, including sexual excitation or inhibition scales and the mood and sexuality questionnaire, and answered questions about, among others, religiosity, education, income, relationship, and sexual satisfaction, and sexual compatibility. Almost 1/4 of men and 19.2% of women indicated that they had cheated during their current relationship, engaged in sexual interactions with someone other than their partner that could jeopardize, hurt their relationship. Among men, a logistic regression analysis explaining 17% of the variance revealed that a higher propensity of sexual excitation and sexual inhibition due to the threat of performance concerns, a lower propensity for sexual inhibition due to the threat of performance consequences, an increased tendency to engage in regretful sexual behavior during negative effects states were all significant predictors of infidelity. In women, a similar regression analysis explained 21% of the variance in engaging in infidelity. In addition to SIS1 and SIS2, which is sexual inhibition and the threat of performance concerns and the threat of performance consequences, for which the same patterns were found as for men. Low relationship happiness and low compatibility in terms of sexual attitudes and values were predictive of infidelity. So essentially, the reasoning behind whether or not men or women cheat are a little bit different, but the percentages appear to be the same. The findings of the study suggest that for both men and women, sexual personality characteristics and for women, relationship factors are more relevant to the prediction of sexual infidelity than demographic variables such as marital status and religiosity. So, I mean, that's just the abstract of it. It's in the article, which I put in the link, so if you guys want to look at it, you can. I will also say that you also have to account for the fact that I don't see control, really. So there is a chance that the men and women are lying about. Some of them may have been lying about whether or not they cheated.
Yeah, that was one of the big things that I was thinking about. Is like, how are they determining whether these people are being honest or not? It's like, how do you make that, that concrete? Because you kind of have to have, like you're saying, there's no control. How do you make a concrete statement that is like, all right, this is this, and then we're going to explore these other two things and see how they measure up against this thing? It's just like,
yeah. And then you also have to factor in of the two genders, which one is more concerned with the perception of being seen as a cheater?
Yeah.
And that may just be an individual thing, but I think that men they tend to care less slightly about social repercussions, but they do care more about things like physical and legal repercussions. So they may be less likely to lie, but don't hold me to that. I'm just, that's speculation completely on my part. So.
Anecdotal, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think to say that both are capable of doing it is completely fair. I mean, we're just human, right? And it's what we do. So, all right. So then the last story, I guess, is, unless anybody wants to say anything else about the cheating thing, the last story is, why would you carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man?
Oh, man.
So,
may I?
You may.
May I kick this off? Oh, there's so much shit I want to say about this. This is just... all right, first off, if you just look at this at a very cursory glance, this is disgusting othering is what this is. Just at its very face value, it is othering of I'm sorry. Reading this thing was making me kind of mad. I just wanted to punch something because I was just like, this is so fucking annoying. But aside from the othering, this is if we kind of dig this down a little bit deeper, we're talking about the denigration and dismissing of white men, and not that's it's like, oh God, I'm a white man, of course I'm not gonna like this, I'm sure I would hear that kind of shit, but like when you look at this thing, there is a history of feminism treating men as disposable, or just history in general treating men as being disposable. But when you come into the current last, say, 10 years or so, this idea where they've taken the idea of men being disposable and turned it into white men being disposable, because now we have, you can't talk about black people or black men being disposable. You can't talk about other minorities as being disposable like you can white men, because they are now a protected class. This whole idea, it's just kind of crazy to me that we've gotten to this point where people can write articles like this and there's not any pushback. I mean, well, okay, maybe I'm painting with broad strokes, but there doesn't seem to be, the kind of pushback where people are saying, or like, you know what, you can't publish this. This is fucking insane. It's like, how are you going to denigrate and other and, you know, belittle entire groups of people like this when, you know, if you were to take this and change it from white men to black men or black women or Mexican men or Mexican women or, you know, whatever it is, to, you know, pick your flavor, whatever
Sure.
thing you want to
Absolutely.
inject into it. If you did that, there would be a fucking outcry like no other. People would lose their fucking minds without exception, without question. It's, you know, we have seen it time and time again. And
certainly wouldn't be on ABC.net.
Yeah. And here's the thing though, it's like, it's funny because like I forget what it was. There was a plugin where, like, you know, on a browser plugin where it would change, I forget what it was. It was like a Guardian thing where it would change everything to Jews. And it's like, just to kind of illustrate how fucking insane it was when you took like this protected class and you plugged them into the article as the, you know, as the aggressor or whatever it was. But when you look at this, this is just nuts to me. This shows that there has been a growing systemic problem where people are whittling away at empathy towards other people to the point where they can be dismissive and derisive and denigrate and other and just make people into second-class citizens. I mean, this shouldn't happen to anybody. You know, and it's not just like, oh, I'm the white man talking about it because I'm angry because I'm a white man and they're talking about me. But this is ridiculous. This is the kind of thing that brings down our society little by little, because it erodes the health of our society. It erodes the health of our interactions. It makes it so that people see other people as less than human. This really, really kind of drives me nuts. It's like, because we hear white men that they don't have it, like, oh god, who's that guy? Fucking the Black Hitler or whatever his name is on fucking on YouTube. Yeah, y'all totally complected individuals, you know, that guy.
Yeah, right.
He's talking about like how white men don't have empathy and they can't understand or feel for anybody that's not a white man. It's like, where the fuck do you get this? Where does this come from? And it's from this kind of thing. And this kind of thinking and this kind of division it's like a fucking plague. It's a virus that is infecting larger and larger portions of our society, and it brings us all down collectively, no matter whoever the perceived perpetrator is. In this case, it's white men, because, you know, it apparently over the last 5 to 10 years, white men have become the catch-all for everything that's ever been done wrong, because, you know, the patriarchy or this, that, and the other. It's just this kind of disturbs me. I mean, this really does disturb me in a way that it kind of, you know, I hate to say it hurts my soul because I'm an atheist and I don't really believe in souls, but it kind of hurts the core of me as a person who actually gives a fuck about all the people around me regardless of what they look like. And it's like, you know, there's my white privilege talking again, but, you know, fuck it. It's just like, how do people think like this? How do they live their lives and go through everyday life thinking like this? You know, it's like we were talking about last week with what's his nuts from BioWare, you know, talking about
Manveer Air. Holy shit, I can't
Air.
believe I remember that name.
Yeah. You know, it's that same kind of thing. It's like, you see this, it's everywhere, and it's crazy, and it's getting more and more popular. And and literally, this hurts everybody. This hurts us as a society across the board, regardless of your skin color, because at some point, you know what, the worm's going to turn, and somebody else is going to be the bad guy. And then they're not going to like that. They're like, oh, wait a minute, but white men, they're the bad guys. You know, it's just like, not anymore. It's your turn.
They're the bad guys. Go get them! When Mickey Mouse showed up.
I don't know why.
People. All right, but I wanted to say on another side of it, though, is what the article is actually so close. It's so close to the truth, which is all of this stuff, this like, carry yourself as with the confidence of a mediocre white man. Where that is, there is a grain of truth there is, if you are a woman that is filled with so much self-doubt and so much insecurity, And there are what you think are mediocre white men, which, by the way, if you have to call them mediocre despite the fact that they seem to be better qualified than you, then odds are they are better qualified than you, but you cannot accept the fact that you might be not good at stuff, or maybe not as good as they are, and then you're trying to find something else to blame. But if they're able to carry themselves in such a way that they're not walking around insecure about everything, and they don't have a chip on their shoulder, and they realize that when they need to go out into the world and get theirs, they don't have a group that, like an institution or some kind of fucking, cause that they can chant for, or somebody they can go to and say, I was discriminated against and I deserve help because my life is made harder by everyone else out there and I actually have no impact on it. This confidence of what you call the mediocre white male comes from the fact that men in general realize they are not going to get a handout, they are not going to get a leg up. They have to either make it or they're going to sink. Or sink or swim, make it or break it, whatever. Okay? And this is just what you have to do. So does that process of essentially struggling to gain the self-confidence and the skills and the assuredness to make it in the world, just surviving, that is a confidence and character building experience. And a lot of men do get it. And what this person who wrote this article is saying is, well, I don't see why, they're just mediocre, I need that, but I don't know how to get that. So I'm going to pretend like I have that, even though I can't get it because what they're getting comes from life experiences that I never had. And I'll read this little bit here. I know that Hannah wants to say something. I want to read this little bit here from the article, okay? It's a section entitled, So Why Do We Women Continue to Doubt Ourselves So Savagely? Writing in the Harvard Business Review last week, Assistant Professor of Organizational Behavior at INSEAD, Zoe Kinius, argued that the reason women hold themselves back is because they expect to be stereotyped in public professions. You do that to yourself. It is not about self-loathing as much as recognizing situations in which they may not be valued as valued as they should be. When ambitious professional women see few women at senior levels, both in the broader business environment as well as in their own companies, she writes, they may suspect that women are devalued. This can lead to self-doubt that interferes with their performance in the form of stereotype threat, a phenomenon first identified by Claude Steele and Elliot Aronson among ambitious African-American college students who experienced self-doubt and underperformed on an exam. It has been shown to affect the performance of women in mathematics and to lead white men playing basketball to experience self-doubt. It has also been hypothesized to affect women and minorities at work. So this is going back to what I was saying before. This self-doubt phenomenon is something that comes from the fact that they're in a place where they are an oddity without actually understanding that maybe you're not an oddity, maybe you're exceptional within your group, or maybe you're the one person that really wanted to do this thing, or maybe you got lucky, but maybe you should not obsess over how, I don't know, fucking... incapable you are, and consider the fact that you are in a position to actually do something, and then just do it. All right, Hannah, you can take it.
I think this is probably, like I said in our chat, this is about the biggest bunch of sour grapes I've ever seen, for one thing. Like the idea that because somebody does something different than you would do and succeeds at it doesn't make them mediocre just because they did it differently from you. And that's like you were saying, it's obvious if they're succeeding at it that might be the right way to do it. It might be that women are not doing something that men are doing. One of the things that men consistently do that women don't do is they don't have to have confidence in order to do something. If they're not confident, they still do it. It's called courage. And courage, people mistake very badly, very often, what courage is. Courage isn't being unafraid. It is going out and doing what needs to be done, even when you are scared shitless that it's going to go wrong, that you're going to get hurt, that you're going to lose your job, whatever. It's doing it anyway. And a lot of times women are raised, as girls with the idea that we don't have to do that. We don't have to show courage. We don't have to take those risks. We're not criticized for stopping because something gets scary. We're not criticized for calling for Dad in the middle of the night to come deal with the monster in the closet. And I had one of the worst closet monsters ever, and, of course, I had a different dad. My dad made me get up and go check and make sure that was actually just my clothes. I didn't, lay there in bed and have Dad slay the closet monster. And I think that makes a difference. A lot of women who never grow up with that experience they don't learn to confront something that they're afraid of. And if we had more time, I have a Halloween story that involved bullying. The short version of it was my brother, our buddy, and I were attacked by high school kids the first year that we went out trick-or-treating without parents. And we knew it was going to happen because we knew that they were attacking kids. We had been told they were in the area we were about to walk through, and the boys chose to walk through that area anyway because they knew if we didn't, it would be worse later. They were terrified. Because these were bigger boys than them, older boys than them. They were terrified. But they went anyway. And the only reason I had the courage to go was because they did. Nobody would have said a word about me if I'd have turned tail and run back, where the streetlights were working and we hadn't gone down the street with a broken streetlight. The boys would have been ridiculed, even though the other boys were bigger than them. And they fought those guys. And my brother broke one of their noses, knocked another one down. They actually really did very well. And I fought like a girl. I didn't do so well. I ended up on my back. But the bottom line of it was very natural for them. And whether it's social or whether it's biological, it was very natural for them to have that courage. And that is something that I've seen in the workplace with men over and over again, that they will try something and they will do something even if they are not confident, even if they do not have that, I'm just going to go make this happen attitude. This is necessary. Somebody's got to do it. Nobody else is doing it. It's up to me. And that's where women, if they want to have that excellence, if they want to be equal to men, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to be able to say, no, I don't have the confidence. I'm not sure that I'm going to achieve this. I'm not sure this is going to work. I'm actually scared that somebody's got to deal with this, and it's up to me.
Yep. Confidence isn't something you just switch on because you need it. It's something that you kind of, and
it's not skin color related either.
Yeah, it's not related to your genitals or your skin color or any of that. It's something that you're going to have to build over time. Either you're going to learn it early from your folks or from your early life experiences, or you're going to learn it the hard way later on. But that's the only way it comes. There's no, I guess I'm going to pretend to be confident and that'll make me confident. That doesn't work. Which is exactly what the article says. Carry yourself like a confident person.
Yeah, or doing something like this article and actually making somebody the bad guy so they can elevate you. It's like, get fucked, lady.
I'm more qualified. Tell yourself you're more qualified than these people, and then you'll feel better about yourself.
And stop being a special snowflake and demanding special conditions at work and bitching about things like air conditioning, which, by the way, bitching about air conditioning is ableist because some of us are asthmatic and we need it to breathe. So shut the fuck up. But, so all feminists are now ableist for bitching about air conditioning.
Oh, shit.
But I mean, complaining about stupid shit like that, that you never see men do that. Men will sit in workplaces or work in workplaces where their lives are at risk. When I've looked up work environments and dangerous jobs and things like that for the pay gap hashtags, the various pay gap hashtags that feminists have used to try to promote the pay gap myth, I've seen men standing on top of skyscrapers, just strapped on with a little strap, looking up and reaching up into the sky to try to catch a pole or a metal beam or a light fixture and other things like that dangling from a helicopter so that they can put it into place. That they're actually, and I've seen men dangling from helicopters doing repair for electrical wires. I've watched, read things about men in coal mines that have actually come within an inch of falling down mine shafts that they don't even know where the bottom is. These are things that women don't do. And quit bitching about air conditioning when men will wade up to their waists and shit to muck out sewers and risk their lives so you can have your computer working at home. Just quit. You want to be equal, at least stop being a special snowflake.
All right. And with that, I think we're going to call the show, unless Max has a final thought about the last story. I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak on it. No? No? Okay.
Damn it, no, sorry, I was just trying to wrestle with the mute, but I was just going to say one thing. If it comes, in terms of women's issues, because I've grown up primarily being surrounded by women and being very more aware of their issues, and I guess I am about my own. And one thing that really does concern me in terms of things that I try to speak up for when it comes to my female friends is trying to improve the self-esteem of just generally women, but more so young women. And unfortunately, it really depresses me when I see articles like this, because a lot of women that do have self-esteem issues do take refuge in feminism really easily, because it co-opts so many of these different women's organizations that are purporting to try and help women in that particular aspect.
Sure.
So it's just, I really wish I could find better alternatives so that I can suggest them to women that are actually having these particular issues about self-determinism and realizing that they're capable of more than they possibly think.
Honey Badger Radio is one such place.
Yes, exactly. Subscribe.
I know it seems weird, but I'm sure the ladies here will have a lot of really useful things for actual women. I mean, like actual ones. I know that sounded weird. Like, we know people who know people. Remember, submissions at badgerpod.com for your submissions.
Yep, remember to send me, if you have an experience that you'd like to talk about at work where you feel like you've been judged unfairly in a way that women are entitled to complain about. Or you've been put through something that women would be entitled to complain about or feel entitled to complain about, and you knew you couldn't. I'd love to hear about it. Love to get a chance to put some of those up on the blog and show people some of the things that men go through. And and if you can, sort of explain what happened, why it happened, at least in vague terms, and how you think it would have been different if a female had gone through the experience and complained about it versus how it would have gone if you had complained about it.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. And I want to thank my co-hosts, Max, Scott, and Hannah, for joining me on this week's Polecat Cast. And cheers to you too, Max. And now we're going to go into the special extra topic. We're going to talk about air conditioning. So if you want to join us on that special shows or shows like it, which we'll try to do every week, become a patron. Patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And we will look forward to seeing you. It's always a good time in the after show. So thank you again to my co-hosts, and thank you for the listeners. And we'll talk to you guys next time.